I mean, I guess because I was that kid once upon a time as well, growing up, and just, needed a pat on the back, somebody to tell me that, that I could actually do it, not only that I could actually do it, I could actually finish it. I never had anybody to tell me that. I didn't finish school, just because I never had anybody to tell me, man, you need to finish this. I never had anybody to scold me and really get on me and do that. So I just think it's very, very important for young people to have mentors, to be able to pat them on the back and kick them in the butt and tell them that, what life is truly all about, as well as to have a springboard into the wrestling business, because it is that underground sport that you just can't, go to some college and get into. So we say, let's create our own college. Let's create our own, they got a AAA here in Vegas. Let's say we're the AAA of professional wrestling, to get young guys ready to, perhaps take on that next step in life if they want to, take on that journey in this business. But if they don't make it in this business, they're still going to go on a journey of life being a part of reality of wrestling. They're going to take something away from that they're going to never, imagine in a million years. So I just think it's all goes back to me being that kid, just wanting to pat on the back.
But let me also say this. So I started reality wrestling like 12 years ago now it's been, which sounds crazy that it's even been that long.
Salute.
But, yeah, thank you. But here's the thing, and I can actually say this honestly. I'm college educated. This last December, I just got my master's degree from the University of Alabama. But I've learned more, seriously, about my life and career and as a person at reality wrestling than all that time in school combined. I've learned so many skills, so many things that I never in a million years would have had those tools in my tool bag, to use a term that Booker uses a lot, if it wasn't for reality of wrestling. Doing stuff like this wouldn't have happened without reality of wrestling, right? Being on television wouldn't have happened without reality of wrestling. Being able to know how to put together a format for a show, how to tell a story, how to enhance characters, how to help come up with character ideas. I always say wrestling's the ultimate entertainment boot camp. You're in front of a live audience, you got one take, it's also on television, you got to learn all these things to do, and it's unlike any form of art before that's ever existed, honestly. There's nothing like professional wrestling. So to have that opportunity for people like me, that's given me this whole career I never would have thought about, is incredible. And then you look at other people like Bryan Keith. Bryan and I almost broke in around the same time. I think he was a year ahead of me. And to see where he's at now. Roxanne Perez, I remember her showing up literally on the Greyhound. and we'd say it so much on commentary. Booker's like, she got a car now, all right? She's not you remember that? She's not taking the Greyhound anymore.
Come on, guys.
Come on, let's shine her up. But I saw that. You know what I mean? And all the people who've come through. And right now, there's nothing. There's a lot of independent wrestling out there, but there's no other reality of wrestlings out there. There's just not. There's no one who has the reach that we have on YouTube, the facilities that we have, the production that we have. There's production meetings, and then there's a secondary production meeting. There's an announcer meeting. There's a cameraman meeting. There's a talent meeting all before the show. It doesn't happen anywhere else. And we had Maven down at the last show, and he was blown away by the facility that we have. And he and I were talking about it, and there's a reason why Bryan Keith or Roxanne Perez, those are just the two recent names that I'm using, there's a reason why they've catapulted into popularity at their respective companies. It's because they've already done this. They've had the simulation, right? I had a baseball coach who told me, practice makes perfect only when you practice perfect. And at Reality Wrestling, we give you perfect practice. You know how to work a hard camera. Yeah. You know about times. You know about cues. You know about lights, camera, entrance, action. You have that experience before you ever get there. I'm sure, Booker, as well as you did in your career, you would have also benefited greatly, even more so, if you had something like a Reality of Wrestling that would teach you everything before you got there.
It's a one-stop shop, and it's not something that happened overnight. Also, we've been, like you say, working on this for almost 20 years now. And
congratulations on that, by the way.
I appreciate it. And it's been a labor of love. I couldn't have done it without my wife. You know what I mean? A lot of this is her vision as far as having our own arena and having our own facility to be able to train our students. So for me, we got a lot of people. Kevin Bernhardt, give him a shout out for being the guy who who's self-taught as far as production, as far as editing goes. He's literally self-taught, and we figured it out. And now it's just onward and up with 2024. It's going to be our biggest year. April 13th. Actually, pay up.
Yeah.
It's already sold out, and we had to, build more risers just to get more seats in. So it's awesome. It's an awesome time for us right now at Reality Wrestling.
Yeah, the last 2 shows we've had, we've sold out a month in advance. It just shows you it's a hot ticket.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
it's incredible, and it's incredible the growth.
And by the way, Booker, Brad gonna need a little bit of a raise for the promo he cut. If you were thinking about joining, you know what I'm saying? He sold it.
Checks in the mail, book, right? Checks in the mail.
But I want to ask you, Booker, how important is it for you, or is it important when you talk to people? And obviously, some people want the limelight, right? And they think you could just get there smooth sailing. But in entertainment, I'm sure, Brad, you felt the same way. I told you when I went to the media day in LA, I was, for a second, I was like, damn, I made it. Okay, now we got to go to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it took I just told you, all the years of me being, you can't wait. So we don't have room. None of that matters. You're here now. Now you have to get to work. How important is sending that message to those that are really the Bryan Keiths, the Usos, and everyone who's gone on to that next level?
No, those guys know that I lead by example. I don't sit around and, rest on my laurels or anything like that. Our last gym that we had, I was the one that was getting that carpet up off the floor, you know what I mean? So those guys, they know, when they see me go out and, push myself as hard as I do, still to this day right now, and trying to understand what this journey is all about. Just like, say, for instance, signing autographs, understanding that that's not my moment, that's their moment, to make sure, you have that innate ability to understand what this thing and what this ride is truly all about. So, no, it's very, very important that my guys, understand it. But, like I say, I lead by example. I don't ask my guys to do anything that I wouldn't do, and I think that's why I got my respect from the guys like Bryan Keith. I love hearing the stories like from like Jimmy and Jey Uso talk about some of the lessons that they learned from me, and I was listening to Jimmy and Jey talk, and they said the one lesson that was so important for them to learn was your losses got to be better than your wins, and they go, man, that's something that we really think about all the time, is our losses got to be better than our wins. Listening to Bryan Keith, say, when he had to try out at AEW, and it was so many guys there, but the only thing he was, that would go back to his head was, his tool bag, and he had all the tools in his tool bag to go out there. He didn't have to think. He didn't have to think. He just thought about his tool bag. So man, I'm proud, man. I'm proud, and it's very, very important, that my guys understand what this thing's all about.
And obviously next week's WrestleMania, but if you look at everything that WWE is going to be involved in, it's a huge week with programming outside of that. Of course, we got Stand and Deliver. We got the Bray Wyatt documentary that I'm going to watch tonight.
Yeah,
I have some tissues next to me because I can't only imagine. But also, they got this new show that has just escaped my mind, but about the NIL kids.
And
there has been a conversation.
I think it's called Next Gen, actually. Yeah.
Yes, Next Gen. Shout out to Roku.
Yeah.
The Roku TVs that we got in here. Shout out to them. And there's been discussion about how in WWE the philosophy's kind of changed about going to get these athletes as opposed to grabbing all strictly the best of the independents, and how I can see how the NIL kids, because they've been in team sports, they know what it is to be coached, because they've been coached probably since they were 8 years old, since they were toddlers. To you and your experience, what's the difference in your opinion when it comes to coaching someone that's coming from the indies, that's been doing wrestling, and someone coming from an NIL?
I think the NIL guys, you got to understand that they're already athletes. They've trained to be athletes. A lot of them have seen certain parts of the world already. So they have an advantage in that aspect. They might be financially smart, opposed to somebody just coming off the indies and never made any money or anything like that. But as far as training them, it's going to be a huge, it's a job just because you got to deprogram them and reprogram them almost. It's like working with guys that have been playing football their whole lives since they were playing Pop Warner. They've been trained to hit somebody as hard as they possibly can, make their teeth rattle, make snot bubbles come out. They want that. In wrestling, hey, bro, you better slow it down. We need to work with you a little bit. But I think that the mindset with the NIL guys it's kind of easy to train them just because they're coachable. I look at the Tiffany Strattons, I look at the Sol Rukas of the world, and it seems like they gravitate to the physicality of it just because. I'm gonna tell you right now, being a gymnast, you got to be tough, man. Those are some of the strongest individuals you're gonna see. So working with those guys is not that hard as far as teaching them to move. I think the indie guys have more of a advantage because some of them have been working, but they have been working and learning psychology. That's what we got to teach the NIL guys, how to tell a story. And that right there, it can be complicated, but there again, most of them have been very, very coachable that I've seen. And we got a bunch of them down there right now in NXT, and all of them seem to just be hungry, and it's repetition. It's repetition. I think that's all it's going to be. And
you going back and forth from Houston to Orlando and being at the Performance Center and going back to Reality of Wrestling, like you still love wrestling like 100%, right? Doing the show, like it's what I do. You know what I mean? When I got into wrestling, I found out it was something that I was good at. It seemed like it was deja vu. It seemed like I had been there before. Working with the Reality of Wrestling, I couldn't do that without having literally a really, really great team. Being able to work with the NXT guys and try to develop their characters as well, to be able to get in their head, and then for them to look at me as a mentor, a lot of them, it's really, really cool because it's not about me. It really isn't. It's not about me at all. And if I can help these guys in any way, I always tell them, if I tell you something, trust me, it's not going to be for me. It's not, 10 times out of 10 times, it's not going to be for me.
Right.
So if I can help these guys in any way, shape, or form, I'm going to be there to help them. And then if I can mix a little Reality of Wrestling in with some NXT at the same time, like we've been doing lately, Javier Bernal, he's going to be at our next show on April 11th. Trick Williams, he's made his, shot at Reality.
We'll get to him in a second.
Oh, you know what I mean? No, but I'm just saying, there's so many guys of Roxanne Perez, came back and blessed us at Reality of Wrestling, so it's so awesome to be able to, merge that and let my talents get, what we call in the business the rub, get the rub.
Hey, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But I will say this too. Yeah, and Booker obviously loves wrestling, and we all do. I mean, that's why we're in this. But I also know, the school is, and I hope I'm not speaking for you, but that's in his heart, because I'll never forget one time Booker calls me, and it's early too, and it's like on a random weekday. It's maybe like a Thursday. It's like at 9 a.m. And he calls me. He's like, hey man, you got a minute? I'm like, yeah, what's going on? He goes, I just got a smoke machine,
Excited as hell.
It's like the most, it sounded like a 5-year-old on Christmas morning, and I say that to say that's because, but look, here's the thing.
It was
a big smoke machine. But look, as funny as that is, it also shows me wow, he's excited because he knows, not for him, he knows, man, the guys' entrances are going to look better. They're going to have a cooler look when they come out. So their publicity photos are going to be better. Maybe they're going to get more bookings out of this.
Hey,
this is how his mind's working. It's for everybody else, And when he says he does work on it for himself, I came in one time and we had this beautiful commentary table that was all redone and had a new paint job on it, and
shiny.
It was shiny and stuff. And Booker came by and knocked on it. He goes, I did that. You know what I mean? But he takes pride at it. But he takes pride in it because he knows I'm doing this for y'all. I'm giving back to y'all. And yeah, it comes through, and we're all very appreciative.
Hey man, that's a beautiful thing. And since I'm leading this interview down the path of like, you know, how you're teaching and growing the next crop. Let me try to finagle this and try to plug everything you're involved in. A&E just announced the next season of Rivals, Most Treasured, all their shows, and they're focusing on you versus Austin.
Yeah.
Which is great, because now we get into the gem of the stories. You know what I'm saying? Rock and Cena, like we all know, but the gem, the ones for the real ones that we're watching. And before we specifically get into that rivalry, I think the one thing for me that was cool is that, you know, you just talked about some of the NIL kids that they're athletes. Well, now they need to learn the story, and that as much as people hate the term, it is sports and entertainment. And the way that you're one of the best wrestlers of all time, but you also made everyone laugh. You still do it today when you're on commentary, and you entertained people just outside of the ring is very important. What is some of your guidance to the future when it comes to that, and remembering like, hey, this is a part of it too? Because to me, it's like a good rapper, right? You could have every word, you could spit like Eminem, but if the song ain't good, bro, I ain't gonna listen to it. And you could be the best wrestler in the world, but if you're not telling a good story, I may not be as intrigued as something else that makes me feel something.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've always been able to step outside of myself and understand what the fan is going to want more than anything. So I always, you know, thought about going out there and trying to make the fans feel a certain way. I talk about the Shaw Brothers productions, and when I was a kid, and I used to go watch all the karate movies, and when I leave the theater, man, I would be chopping somebody. I'd be making all kind of sounds because I had so much fun. I was entertained, you know, to the utmost. And when I was in WCW, I was a wrestler. But when I came to WWE, I had a real chance to work on my character building, and I had so many good teachers that helped me work on my character building. And I just had to have an open mind more than anything. I just had to have an open mind and just go with the flow and see exactly where this thing goes. But I always thought about, no matter how big you know, the role was or how small the role was, I needed to enhance that role and make it as big as I wanted it to be. Just like Stone Cold and I in the grocery store, you know, we had one shot to go out and do that. And Stone Cold and I, we definitely wasn't thinking about making history or anything like that. We definitely wasn't thinking about, you know, 20 years later, you know, people will be talking about that. It'll be one of the WWE's, you know, greatest moments. That wasn't the thought process. We just wanted to go out there and do it to the best of our ability. I knew what my job was. He knew what his job was. This was the payoff, and when you paying off, you got to pay off. You got to just be all in. And for me, it was some great TV, but you got to be able to literally laugh at yourself. You got to be able to, you know, go all in, and just like I say, your losses. Like that was my loss, but it had to be better than all of my wins. And all I remember is at the end of that take was, you know, I'm gonna get you, man. I'm gonna get you. After that ass whooping, but that's the only thing I'm thinking about.
Still talking.
I'm still talking crap. I'm gonna get you, man. You know, so that's movies, that's TV, but that's been the best part of the wrestling business for me. It hadn't been the one-loss record. It hadn't been the championships or anything like that. It's been the great entertainment that the fans have gotten out of, you know, my career. And a lot of stuff I don't even remember until the fans come back and say, hey, Buck, you remember when such and such? And I go, oh, yeah, then I remember it. You know, because I always say the memory was for the fan. You know, it wasn't for me.